for order, a war for gold, a war for money, and a war for souls. A war on terror, a war on drugs, a war on kindness, a war on hugs, a war on birds, and a war on bees. They got a war on hippies.
Places around town he was doing some research on.
Hi, I'm Liz Reese and welcome to Voices of Resistance. I'm up at the University of Hawaii on Earth Day, April 22nd, for the Defend Science March, and anyone who cares about humanity and the planet should be out here defending science. The Trump-Pence regime is attacking science, truth, and the environment. So I'm very proud to be here with several hundred people that have gathered up at the Bachman Lawn, University of Hawaii, Manoa campus. There's going to be different speakers. There's a lot of different groups that have tables. World Can't Wait is here with the table, taking out the call from Refuse Fascism. And I'd like to read a statement from Refuse Fascism on 3 reasons to march for science. 1, truth matters. Evidence is evidence. Alternative facts are not facts. Reason 2, science amazes. Science expands the mind and enriches one's appreciation of the beauty and richness of the natural world. Reason number 3, science is needed to solve big problems. Problems like global climate change, disease, social injustice cannot be solved without science. There's hundreds of marches for science happening today across the U.S., even globally. So I encourage people to check it out if they haven't already seen the news and seen the fabulous photos of people all uniting and standing together and resisting in the streets.
Go Chuck, go. Hi.
So I'm up at University of Hawaii at the World Can't Wait table in the Defend Science March. And this is an excellent reason of why people should be coming out next weekend as well for the People's Climate Change March. 3 reasons to march at the People's Climate Change March, April 29th. 1, the future of the planet is at stake. The Trump-Pence regime has catastrophically escalated the danger to oceans, ecosystems, and more. 2, the beauty of nature must be preserved. We must not let Trump Pence deprive future generations of the wonder, beauty, and richness of nature. 3, all of humanity depends on it. Climate change is already driving the poorest, most oppressed of the world into even greater misery. So we've been getting very good response at the World Can't Wait table. People have been signing up to get more connected, to be part of a movement that's going to be out here opposing all this. The attacks on the environment and the attacks on people. We've also been passing out the call from Refuse Fascism. I also want to let viewers know about some actions that have been happening throughout the month of April. Last week, Saturday, Tax Day, April 15th, Hawaii J20, which World Can't Wait is a part of, had a tax march in Honolulu. Over 400 people came out in Honolulu. It was a very energetic group. We had wonderful speakers, and there were hundreds of actions on that day as well, happening across the country. So the good thing is that people are coming out. We all have to be out there resisting the Trump-Pence regime. We have to be uniting with all kind of groups, with everyone. This is not the time for BS. This is not the time for petty fighting. This is the time to take a real stand for humanity, which Defend Science is all about. Now, I also want to let people know about the bombing in Syria. People should be outraged about the bombing, but the good thing is that people also came out to oppose the U.S. bombing of Syria. On Monday, April 10th, here locally in Honolulu, we had a sign holding at the Federal Building, and about 40 people joined World Can't Wait, Young Progressives Demanding Action, and 350.org. People were outraged that Trump sent 59 Tomahawk cruise missiles into a Syrian government airbase in what he said was retaliation against the Assad regime's reported poison gas attack, which killed 200 Syrian civilians. We all know this was BS because Trump, who said he was responding to the deaths, as he put it, innocent children, innocent babies, just less than a month before that, had ordered an airstrike on a mosque in Syria on March 16th, killing 46 civilians. He has twice attempted to ban civilians from that same country, Syria, from entering the U.S. as refugees. And then on April 13th, the U.S. military dropped an 11-ton bomb, which they actually had the disgusting nerve to call the mother of all bombs. That's what it's being called, the mother of all bombs, which was the largest bomb dropped in any war since the U.S. nuked Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So as you can see, there's so many reasons for humanity and for the planet to be part of all these events and be resisting in the streets. Today's program of Voices of Resistance is from the Festival of Resistance, which happened on March 13th. And 2 fabulous speakers who did a talk on militarization and resistance in the Pacific are the main speakers. And it's, more timely than ever of what's happening as we're dropping the mother of all bombs, as we're having open talks and discussions about preparing for nuclear war. This is insanity, and we have to be resisting. So I hope you enjoy the talk. Be part of the resistance. You must not be silent.
We can't stop it when the beat just drops. We can't stop it with the rebel rock. We can't stop until we hit those heights. We can't stop because we love this life. We can't stop it when the beat just drops. We can't stop it with the rebel rock. Those heights. We can't stop because we love this life. And we don't stop.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Hey, Trump, have you heard? Thank you for watching Voices of Resistance. See you in the streets.
So what is our relationship to the United States? We're neither foreign nor fully part of the United States, but rather something called foreign in a domestic sense. So it's kind of like if you all had, like let's say we're kids, right? And you got that like awesome parking spot at your high school or something like that, and I wanted to like park there all the time, I'd be your friend to get your parking spot and ask, do you mind if I just park here every now and then? But I really didn't like you, and if I'm never going to invite you to my parties, that's kind of the relationship it's like right now, okay? It's pretty much a relationship of abuse, all right? That's what it is. Our relationship to the United States is one of colonialism, oppression, domination, and ultimately a complete shoveling of our rights and self-determination struggles. So, it all stems from this. The U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2. This is something called the Territorial Clause, which states that the Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting their territory or other property belonging to the United States. So that's where it comes from. Now, you might be asking, this is about the military. What does this have to do with that? Well, it's all interconnected. The reason why they are able to make these unilateral decisions is because we do not possess the political power or sovereignty to counter it. We have the people power, and that's very important. But on the political level, we are a part of the United States, and we are their tip of the spear. Okay? This is our quality of life. You don't have to read all of this, right? But it's to point out that our current political status makes our suicide rates 50% higher than the United States. 41.4% of our native Pacific Islander students felt sad or hopeless. 19.3% attempted suicide. Our per capita rate of forcible rape is more than twice the national average. Almost half of our federal funds goes to food stamp and goes to Medicaid. And there were 536 Chamorros who make up 42% of the total houseless population in Guam. This is our current reality of our people. And the military is seen as the dream. It's seen as the thing to aspire to join so you can get out of this poverty. But it's a vicious cycle that actually never solves itself. So what about the military? Where are they in Guam? Well, they're all over, okay? We are the tip of the spear of the American military saber, as Pete said. So we're also not only where America's day begins, where America's colonialism continues, but we are also where America's war begins. 27 or even 28% of the island is currently occupied by the United States military. And a lot of that land that they acquired was pretty much stealing land after World War II from Chamorros, okay? We are a strategic location. That has always been the reason for them to be here. In 1898, they acquired us, they used us as a coaling station, and then eventually, right, we're seeing it's all about strategy. It's all about the curse of geography that we are forced to suffer through as of now. But hopefully, when I end this presentation, we can imagine geography in a different manner of solidarity. So we're the tip of the spear. We are the Fortress Pacific, America's unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Pacific. These are all terms that are referred to Guam. So Guahan, we have, is now tip of the spear. And as my friend Dr. Michael Lujan Bavacqua says, the tip of the spear always sees first blood. So what do we really want for our homeland? What do I want for my 2-year-old daughter? Do I want her to be the tip of the spear? Absolutely not, okay? We have all of them. We have like the checklist of like military stuff. B-1, B-2s, B-52s, the THAAD, which is the Terminal High Altitude Defense System, okay? We have a home port that sees nuclear submarines. We have a naval ordnance annex. The whole north of the island is the Air Force Base. The southern half, you have the Navy base. And I'm nowhere near done. Okay. Does anyone know what this is? Wow, that went everywhere. Okay. Does anyone know what that is? Okay. I'm gonna go over here real quick. Okay. Right, does anyone know what this is? This is called the DF-26. It's China's first intermediate ballistic missile, which pretty much has the capability to reach Guam. It's also dubbed the Guam Killer. Okay, so imagine, we're a population of around 160,000 people. Most of the time we're pretty chill, you know, but yet we have Chinese dubbed missiles, the Guam Killer. We have missiles that are capable of reaching Guam. Why? Why attack Guam? Always refers back to the military, right? And we can see this happen. I remember when these folks here, North Korea, okay, if the US is reckless, misjudging the trend of the times and the strategic position of the DPRK, all the US military bases in the operational theater in the Pacific, including Guam, will face ruin in the face of all-out attack to be mounted by the army of the DPRK. Another quote, the US should not forget that the Andersen Air Force Base on Guam, where the B-52s take off, and naval bases in Japan proper, and Okinawa, where nuclear-powered submarines are launched, are within the striking range of the DPRK's precision strike means. So, I remember when all this news was coming out, you had people on Facebook and social media saying, thank God the US military is here. They're going to protect us from these threats. And I countered, saying, why the hell are these threats here to begin with in Guam? It's exactly the United States military presence. And so we have to rethink that. We have to reimagine ways outside of this military mindset that the military is there to protect. The fact the military makes everything so much more dangerous. So, you know, Pete was saying the new Cold War, you know, I mean, you hear about people hiding under their desks, afraid of the Soviet Union. But imagine in Guam, every few months you get a threat. You get a new threat. I remember one time my mom sitting back there, I was at a lavender farm on Maui, it was quite beautiful, but she called me crying because North Korea made a threat, and she asked to keep Guam in my thoughts. And that really hurt. It hurt that families back home who just want to live their lives and hopefully be a sovereign, independent people have to deal with the geopolitical tensions. We are pawns in a game that we don't even want to be a part of. We also face land contamination. This is a very, very detailed chart of all the land contaminations that have happened in Guam. Guam's cancer rates are really, really high, especially with nasopharyngeal cancer. And most recently, a bunch of veterans have come out saying that they have sprayed Agent Orange in Guam. But the Department of Defense refuses to acknowledge this, okay? Refuses to acknowledge this. And in the north, where the Andersen Air Force Base is, that's where our aquifer is. That's where the water is. That's where we drink, okay? And so right now we're in the midst of this investigation because a lot of veterans have come out saying that they sprayed Agent Orange. But if they continue to deny it, the Department of Defense, we're going to keep fighting back and demanding more rigorous investigations into this, and maybe coming from our own people. The military said that they've done their own investigations and they found nothing. Well, duh, right? So this is what we're going through. But this is only Guam. I come from the Marianas Archipelago. There's also the Marianas Range Complex, which was pretty much passed in 2010. It's 500,000 nautical square miles, all right? To give that into perspective, it's 3 times the size of California. 500,000 nautical square miles. And what it does, it gives the military a playground for live fire exercises and weapon testing, such as submarine warfare, sonar technology development, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes in Guam, we do have beached wells, okay? So if this was not enough, 5 years later, they said, we're gonna up the ante, okay? And they went through with the Marianas Islands testing and training. So it went from 500,000 square miles, okay, to 984,000 nautical square miles. So this is larger than the states of Washington, Oregon, California, Idaho, Nevada, Arizona, Montana, and New Mexico combined. And now that's their playground, okay, to do the same thing, all right? Live fire, high impact underwater weapons, and deadly sonar, which will kill precious marine life, right? So not only do they want the land, they want our ocean, They want our waters. So everything is under threat. This is a picture of the island that they bombed called Farallon de Mendaniza, or No'os in the indigenous Chamorro name. They originally got this with an agreement with what is now called the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, and their lease on the island expires, I believe, 2033, but they can have a unilateral extension if they wanted to, I think to 2083. Now, I want to show you a video. This is from the YouTube U.S. military channel, so they're just openly flaunting it. This is them bombing that island. That's what happens. Now, with the MIT that passed in 2015, they're going to drop about, if I'm not mistaken, around close to 6,000 bombs a year on the island. On an interview that my friends in We Are Guahan did with some fishermen that are sort of near there, sometimes they say that during the bombing they can hear the island cracking. Okay, they can hear the island cracking. So, this is a Marianas-wide issue. And if this ever shows up again, I'll go on further with my presentation. But, so here it is. This is a picture of it. Okay, this is the entire MIT range. So it extends all the way like near Palau. But keep in mind, this is why I even gave political status in the beginning. The MIT study area does not include the sovereign territory or territorial seas of the FSM or Palau. Okay, so even though the FSM and Palau are, yes, prone to military establishments because of their compacts of free association, the fact that they're quote-unquote independent nations does give them some defense against full-on domination by the United States, just putting whatever they want, wherever they want. Now, on the Northern Islands, there's also the Sinamai Joint Military Training. This is, I know Carolyn and your husband has been very, very helpful with this struggle, and there's been a lot of campus events. So Pagan is an island north of Guam, north of Saipan, and they pretty much want to take the northern half to train and bomb. Okay, live firing ranges, amphibious exercises, grenade launchers, rocket mortars, missiles, airdrop bombs up to 1,000 pounds. Okay, this is Pagan. And we are trying to say that this is absolutely ridiculous. Before this, we had the threat of Pagan, was that, you know, everyone knows the nuclear accident that occurred in Japan, right, with Fukushima. There was originally a bill in the legislation of the CNMI that was going to put nuclear, all the dump waste, and then we're going to turn Pagan into a dump waste for the debris from that incident. And the CNMI people were like, no, okay? Even though that was introduced within their own legislature, right? But when this came out, you saw a lot more people come out and be like, no, absolutely not. There were people living in Pagan, but there was a volcanic eruption in 1981, if I'm not mistaken, 1981, 1986, I think it's 81, and they moved all of them to the pretty much Saipan. So people still claim that as their home. It's just with the volcanic eruption, you know, it was dangerous. 6 people around still live there now. They went back, right? And these 6 people go back and forth from Saipan, but they claim it as their home. So we're not talking about some uninhabited island. But even if that was the case, that island is ours. So, you know, that doesn't apply to you, right? Just because something is devoid of people doesn't mean that you can take it, okay? Just like if you left your house, it doesn't give me the right to go into yours. Now, the island where there are a few thousand people is Tinian, and they want to take the northern 2/3 of the island for live firing ranges. Does anyone know the importance of Tinian in World War II history? Pretty much, that's where the nuclear bombs were loaded into the planes that bombed Japan. Okay, so I've actually visited the northern half of the island and saw the nuclear missile silos. Okay, so the military took that northern 2/3 of the island, right? Initially, they were going to develop a base, but that didn't go through. It actually did make people upset because they were looking for the economic possibilities of a base. But now they want to take it and pretty much hold off the population from accessing this area around 20 weeks a year. Okay. Now, with all this amphibious exercises, with all of this ammunition, they only have one aquifer over there. And so there's a lot of worry from the EPA and from the local people saying that the Navy has failed to mention the true effects that it's going to have on the aquifer. Okay, that's drinking water. Deborah Fleming, who is a hotel owner and also part of a lawsuit against the Department of Defense, saying, we believed in America, and instead what they want to do is destroy our island. That's how we feel. A lot of us felt like that before. I was happy to be raised into a generation that never felt that patriotic because I was raised in a history of knowing our oppression, but for like my grandmother's generation, who was quote unquote liberated after World War II. She thought America was everything. She thought Americans were the answer to everything. They were the saviors. But when I tell her about these things, I tell her about the land taking that happened, she feels completely betrayed. How can a liberator come into your home, take you? It's kind of like this. Let me put this into perspective. Let's say that someone was robbing you, okay, robbing your house. I'm walking by, I see the person robbing you, I run in, kick his ass, okay, and then go on to say that because I did that, I now have rights to live in your house. That's exactly the logic that's happening here. The military quote unquote liberated Guam, and now I'm going to take it. It's mine. I can stay here. I saved you. And a lot of our people actually do think that that's a valid reason. But for a lot of us, it's absolutely not. All right. So lastly, what I want to talk about is the Mariana Islands Guam military relocation, which is the one most sort of pressing for our island where I'm from. So originally there was a proposal to bring 8,000 Marines and their dependents to Guam. We had a lawsuit. The military, Department of Defense pretty much said, okay, we'll drop it, we'll find another location. Now they said, okay, 5,000 then. Okay. So 5,000 Marines, they're gonna build a Marine base in what is quote federal land in Finagazen. And what they wanna do is they wanna build another firing range, but something called the surface danger zone is over Litekzan. Okay, Litekzan is pretty much, they found some of the oldest Chamorro artifacts there recently. And there's a lot of medicine around that area. There are 30 of these trees, and the mother tree is right in their surface danger zone. There are only 30 of them in the world, and they only exist in Guam and Rota. So that area is rich. It's where the wildlife refuge is, okay? Now, I wanna explain why this is what we're fighting for. With all of that military overview, a lot of us have said that the answer is independence, that we need to fight for our independence as a sovereign nation, and then we can go to critique the nation state, and we can destroy the nation state after we get it. But we have to have the ability to kill our own nation state first. So we're fighting for that. What do we mean by independence? To exercise self-government over one's territory and population, to have sovereignty and to participate on the world stage as equals, and lastly, to create a government that can work for us. This is nothing that we have now. Our government was created through a 1950 Organic Act by the United States Congress. Okay? So we didn't get to formulate that government the way that speaks to us and how we interact with each other, how our relationships dictate cultural norms, social values, none of that. That's what we want. We want to be able to become a neutral country. We want to be able to form alliances with Oceania and independent Pacific nations to say, keep out of our ocean. Stop contaminating it, stop threatening our people, stop using us as a pawn in your imperial games. But we can only really do that if we become an independent nation, right? on that stage. Granted, we are not going to stop with the people power and the affinity geopolitics, as Sasha Davis says before that, but this is something that we strive to do. So independence does not mean isolation. It instead allows Guam to enter a network of global interdependence as an equal partner rather than a possession of another. And so what I'm hoping to do here is ask of all of you for two things. Number one, check out Oceania Rising, which is our local group here at UH Manoa that speaks about these issues. If you are interested in meeting and talking about this and building networks of solidarity and planning events, please come see us after the event. Kyle and I will be here. This is some of the meetings that we've had, right? Freedom is Oceania Rising. And also, if you could please sign this petition. That's a long to write, but if you type in Protehile Texan, it's a petition to save Ritidian from the degradation and militarization of native lands. A lot of our Amut farmers, a lot of our healers back home just had a walk through that area to show the importance of the medicinal plants that are there, but we need everyone's help with this. We need everyone's help to help us fight the militarization of our lands. And support us. We are fighting for independence, and we need to help show the people of Guam that this is feasible, that we have support from around the world. So you can email me here, visit our websites. We have Instagram. We're trying to keep up with the times, yeah. But yes, pretty much, if I can leave you with anything today, it is this. This is the adze. Our ancestors used this to carve canoes that sailed the ocean wide and established relationships with fellow Pacific nations. What we're doing is that this adze has been taken from us, and futures have been carved by the United States military that are nuclear, that are dangerous, that threaten the lives of my daughter and her children, that threaten the physical integrity of our actual island because of bombing, that threaten the ability for our people to self-determine what we want to do. And so in taking back the adze, I envision us carving a new future, and that only happens if we take an approach of solidarity in Oceania. When Oceania comes together and says, I may seem like a small island, but have you seen the ocean and how large it is? Have you seen my brothers and sisters in Kiribati? Have you seen my brothers and sisters in Aotearoa? Have you seen my brothers and sisters in the Solomon Islands, in Palau, et cetera, et cetera? And together, we will ensure that your military, that your imperial agenda will never succeed here. So, on this campus, let's start to form that dream. Sizus Masi.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Kyle Kajihiro. I work with Ken and others in Oceania Rising. I'm also a grad student in geography. And before that, I used to work with the Hawaii Peace and Justice and the American Friends Service Committee. And one of the things we worked on was addressing the military impacts in Hawaii and in the region. So I'm going to talk about Hawaii as the pivot of U.S. empire building in the Pacific and try to connect it up to the talks that Ken and Pete gave. I'll start with the Hawaiian historian David Malo. He prophesied in 1848, I think, that when the high tide rises, large fish will come from the dark sea, and when they see the small fish in the shallow water, they will eat the small fish. So what do you think he was talking about? What was his reference to? This is an early period in Hawaiian kingdom history, but he was already seeing the colonial scramble for the Pacific, and he knew that Hawaii was in their sights, right? So he was making a warning to the rulers of Hawaii to watch out for empire builders, right? And Hawaii was vulnerable to this. So fast forward a few years to 1873, General John Schofield and his entourage makes a sort of a visit to the islands. They're cruising around the islands, and in this so-called diplomatic mission, they're actually doing secret military reconnaissance. So he writes back to his superiors that it is the key to the Central Pacific Ocean. It is the gem of these islands, valueless to them, Native Hawaiians, because they cannot use it, but more valuable to the United States than all else the islands have to give. What do you think? What particular geography do you think that he's referring to in this? Any guess? Pearl Harbor, right? Or what was originally named Ke'awalau or Pu'uloa, the many bays of Pu'uloa, the Pearl Waters, the Avava Lay, the lay of valleys and harbors, right? Place where it was very important to female deities, right? Kala'i Manuia was a queen that helped to build fish ponds. Ka'ahu Pahau, the shark goddess, that protected the people of Oahu from man-eaters. And Kanekua Ana, the mo'o wahine, who brought the fish, all the abundance to this place, right? This is a place of abundance and fertility. And if you look at this old map from 1873, you can see the many fish ponds all along the water here. Most of these are now been filled in. And all of these areas that are kind of darkened, those are all indicating wetlands. So because Pu'uloa is at the convergence of two mountain ranges, right? The Waianae Range on one side, Po'ola Range on the other, and about 12 different watersheds draining into it. They had a lot of fresh water, which meant that this place was very momona. Yeah, it was very rich. It was full of life and very productive. And so this was the highest concentration of fish ponds. You can see the fish ponds in here. Highest concentration of fish ponds on Oahu. And as a result, this place could be considered the food basket of Oahu. Yeah, it was one of the places that made Oahu productive and relatively peaceful, right? Because they didn't have to fight over resources. But Pu'uloa also became the centerpiece, the object of desire for the United States planners, military planners, and politicians. And it became the kind of the centerpiece in the whole controversy around the taking of Hawaii, right? Which begins with the Bayonet Constitution in 1887, right? That disenfranchises the majority of Native Hawaiians. And as a result of that, the white-controlled cabinet agrees to a free trade agreement that grants the United States exclusive access to Pu'uloa in exchange for this trade, reducing the tariff on Hawaiian sugar. When the Queen, Liliuokalani, tries to reverse this Bayonet Constitution, this is when the second act of the takeover happens in 1893. We have the so-called overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom backed by United States troops, right? So the Marines land at Honolulu Harbor, they march up Mililani Street, and they point their Gatling guns at the Iolani Palace, right? So this small group of white businessmen could seize power because they were backed by the muscle of the United States military. And this is where the broken relationship begins for Hawaii and the United States. It begins with a military intervention. It begins with a regime change that becomes the first of many regime changes in U.S. history, right? Hawaii was the prototype for this type of policy to take place. And despite resistance by Native Hawaiians to annexation, the Spanish-American War breaks out in 1898, and Hawaii becomes a military necessity. So this begins one of the themes in this history that Haunani Trask talks about. So whenever the United States goes to war, they take more Hawaiian land. Right? The U.S. takes Hawaiian land. And as a result of this moment in time, Hawaii helps the United States. We become the stepping stone for the United States to move from a continental-based, a land-based empire into an overseas empire. And this cartoon from that era indicates that kind of ambition from the Caribbean all the way to Manila, right? Under the eagle's wings. But we are sort of the pivot of that transformation. So if you just remember your physics, right? Every pivot needs a fulcrum, right? If you ever have to lift a heavy object, you put something under it, you use a lever, and you can lift it much easier because of that fulcrum. So I would argue that Hawaii plays a similar kind of role geopolitically for the United States. We become a fulcrum of military and imperial power to project outwards. And as a result of the United States taking Hawaii, the United States could also take Guam and the Philippines in that same motion, right? And terrible graphics. Sorry about that. This is a logo for the United States Pacific Command. And so, 100 years later, and they're using the same logo, basically of the eagle. This is, Hawaii is now the headquarters of the oldest and largest of the U.S. Unified Commands, right? Headquartered in Halawa Heights, above Pearl Harbor. Its area of responsibility goes everywhere from the west coast of North America, all the way to the central Indian Ocean, from Alaska, all the way to and including Antarctica, right? So most of the area of the planet and the majority of the population of the Earth falls within this area of responsibility right here. And it's all headquartered right there. So the metaphor that Kalekua Ka'eo, a professor of Hawaiian Studies in Maui College and an activist, he said that you could think of Hawaii as the head of a monstrous hay. If you think about the military in Hawaii, it's like the head of this octopus, right? Its tentacles are reaching out all over the Pacific. This is what it looks like on our islands. The red and yellow areas are the kind of current and the recent expansion of military lands. The orange or peach colored are former military lands. So the height of military expansion here was during World War II. They had about 645,000 acres of land in Hawaii. Today it's about 240. This is a little bit low. I think it's closer to 240. About 142 military sites. And if you look at Oahu Island, it's about a quarter of our island is under military control. So a lot of that you might not notice because it's up in the hills, but we have one of the highest concentrations of military land tenure, close to Guam and Okinawa, I think are the other two that are comparable. The brains of this octopus can be imagined as the supercomputers and the command center. This is up at Halawa Heights where the Pacific Command is located. Their command center, with their flat panel screens, the supercomputer in Maui, and all the fiber optics that connect this stuff is like the nervous system. Yeah? The eyes of this octopus, up on top of Maui, they have a tracking station for the Air Force in Koke'e, Kauai, Kaena Point, and even that floating golf ball that comes in and out of Pearl Harbor is part of this network of sensors that they have, remote sensors. So that's a sea-based X-band radar, if you don't know, and it's about a $5 billion project. It's a very expensive experimental radar. It's really powerful, and it's meant to protect against missile strikes. So in the same way that Guam gets sort of used to justify militarization, right, and North Korea gets kind of used also as the antagonist in this drama. Whenever North Korea talks about doing another missile launch, this thing gets trotted out and towed somewhere in the Pacific to protect us, right? Even though the only reason why North Korea would have a missile aimed at us is, as Ken said, because we've got missiles pointing at them, right? But it works. It doesn't work well, and it's been critiqued by the General Accounting Office and other experts have said it's a very expensive boondoggle, right? But if you think of it as a device for creating military contracts and continuing military contracts, it works really well. Because every year they get new money, the defense contractors get new money to improve it. So incremental improvements gives you a long-term lifespan on this kind of a project. The ears of this octopus, sensors off the ocean of Kauai, and over in the central Oahu we have the Naval Computer Telecommunications Area Master Station, NCTAMS, and also the National Security Agency Regional Signal Intelligence Center, right? So if you've heard of Edward Snowden, the guy who blew the whistle on NSA spying and capturing all of our electronic communications, he worked in one of these bunkers underground, that was filtering through all of our communications, right? The excrement of an octopus like this is widespread. It can be symbolized by what happened to Pu'uloa, right? Once the food basket is now a giant superfund, which is a government list of the most toxic and priority areas for environmental cleanup. Everything from PCB and heavy metals, mercury, lead, radioactive cobalt-60, fuel spills, solvents like perchloroethylene. And sadly, the pearl oyster is now extinct. And so if you go to the shoreline, you'll see signs like this. And one of the most recent incidents we've had is if you go over the Ōlelo freeway towards the stadium, you'll pass over what's called Red Hill, or the Hawaiian name is Kapukaki. Under this hill are 20 of these giant fuel tanks. Each one is 250 feet high by 100 foot in diameter. The Aloha Tower would fit inside of one of these, right? There are 20 of these tanks buried in the mountain, running a tunnel with a pipeline, and a small railroad runs underground from there all the way to Pearl Harbor. And each tank holds 12.4 million gallons of fuel. Okay? So this was built in secret during World War II. It's still being used, even though over the years they start breaking down, and they've had leaks. I think every single tank has leaked over the years, and the latest one in 2014 was 27,000 gallons of jet fuel leaked out. The tanks, you gotta understand that these tanks are 150 feet above the Halawa aquifer. Okay? The bottom of the tank is 150 feet. So 12.4 million gallons times 20, 150 feet over the aquifer. And this aquifer is one of the main sources of fresh water for Honolulu. It provides 24% of the water from Honolulu to Hawaii Kai. So we're all implicated by this threat. The violence is also indicated by things like the destruction of Hawaiian sites. And this picture here is from it's in Mokapu on the Kaneohe Marine Base. These sand dunes are called Ōlelo. It's one of the largest Native Hawaiian burial sites in the Hawaiian Islands. And so they're literally golfing on the bones of Hawaiian ancestors. Several thousand human remains were removed for a runway that kind of cuts through this area. And they're in boxes at the Bishop Museum. Terry's been involved in efforts to try to repatriate these bones. So these are all the kind of the negative effects that spill over from the military presence that they never really tell you about, right? Violations of civil rights and liberties. So in the age of Trump, I think we have a lot to be concerned about this. And Hawaii hasn't had prior experience of martial law for 3 years during World War II, during which time land was condemned for military exercises, and persons of Japanese ancestry were put in concentration camps, right? Several thousand were put in camps. The other aspect is, I think it's really important to understand how militarization is part of a process of forced assimilation, right? How Native Hawaiians and Japanese immigrants in Hawaii were kind of put through military training as a way of making them loyal subjects, to become sort of confused. Junior ROTC was implemented. One of the first schools in the country was actually Kamehameha schools, right? The Native Hawaiian school. The second one was McKinley High School, which was Tokyo High, because of so many Japanese children in there. And the idea behind that was how to make them better Americans, right? How to incorporate them into your society. Some of the other spillover effects, economics. So we hear a lot about the military economy, and it is a large part of the economy. But another way you could look at it is the dependency that kind of warps our economic viability in the long run, right? So things like housing is one example where military housing subsidies, which could be a couple to maybe $4,000 extra a month for housing, gives an advantage to the military renter or home buyer, which tends to inflate the cost of housing, right? We already have one of the highest costs of living because of the housing prices, and we have this exploding homelessness problem in the islands that's related, I think, right? No one's really kind of analyzed it in that way, but we've been saying that we have to look at how the economy gets distorted by these sort of factors. Accidents, a constant problem. Violence against women that sort of spills over from these bases. We know that it happens a lot in Korea and Okinawa and the Philippines. In Hawaii it also happens, but we haven't had systematic analysis or study of these phenomena. So that's one area that needs more research. And then the tentacles are reaching out to Okinawa and Guam, Kwajalein, Korea, and other places, right? And so it centers here, and I guess this is another theme that comes up, is here we have to, I think, be responsible for two aspects. One is the violence of the military occupation in Hawaii on the people and on the land. but also on the consequences of this military occupation for other people around the region, right? Who host the bases or who are the targets of war and other kinds of military intervention, right? And if you're a fisherman, you ever caught taco or he'e, if you cut off a tentacle, it'll grow back, right? So in the Philippines, the bases were kicked out, but they're coming back. After September 11, advisors in Mindanao, with the conflict in the South China Sea, an expansion of the visiting forces agreement to allow more U.S. presence in the Philippines. So we have to deal with the problem at the head. Some of the recent expansions that have happened, the Striker Brigade was a 25,000 acre land grab. We weren't able to stop it despite many challenges to that. But recently, because of the financial downsizing of the military, they moved the Strikers out. So in a way we won, but they still took the land, right? The land was still taken. Missile defense, Ken mentioned the THAAD system. They just recently said they're going to start building a THAAD a missile complex in Korea, which the Koreans are very much against, because it's going to upset the balance of power with China. Right? China is very concerned about these. And Hawaii, it plays home to one of the largest training areas in the island. So this becomes a big playground for the defense contractors to test their wares. This is on the west side of Kauai at Polihale Beach and Nohili. The Osprey tilt rotor aircraft is another recent expansion. It will be home ported at Kaneohe Marine Base, but training will occur in many locations throughout the islands. So this is now, we begin to see these arriving. I think there's some Osprey on the island already, and not all of them yet, but pretty soon they'll be here. And so there's, Terry was involved in some opposition, but we haven't seen huge resistance to this effort. Although this is the one that recently crashed in Waimanalo, if you remember a couple of years ago. It was very dangerous. Pohakuloa is the other site that's being targeted. It's one of the largest live fire ranges outside the U.S., and so this is where most of the live fire training is going to be moving to. There's all kinds of new developments out here, but also a new challenge from Native Hawaiians who are suing the state of Hawaii for its failure to protect these lands, which are being leased from the state to the military. And these are all lands of the Hawaiian trust lands, lands of the former lands of the Hawaiian Kingdom that were taken over and are held in trust by the state. So this is an ongoing issue over there at Pohakuloa. Just a couple of examples of resistance that I think are symbols of hope and inspiration. Kaho'olawe was one effort where a small group of activists began the struggle, and it grew into a movement which eventually stopped the military from bombing Kaho'olawe, right, the smallest of the main Hawaiian islands. And so I think it is possible for small groups to leverage its power through networks. And it was really this kind of trans-oceanic solidarity with the nuclear-free and independent Pacific movement that helped put a lot of pressure on the United States and its allies to stop bombing Kaho'olawe. Right? So the bombing stopped in 1990, $400 million appropriated for cleanup, but only a tenth of the island is actually safe for kind of unrestricted access. Makua Valley is another site where there's ongoing struggle. It was taken during World War II. There's been a lot of protests, and in 1998, Malama Makua filed a lawsuit to challenge the armies for failing to do an environmental study. And because of that lawsuit and the kind of settlement agreement that was reached, the Army's been actually constrained by the court for 14 years now. They haven't trained. So, I think as time goes on, it's just proving the point that we've made that the Valley's not needed for live fire training, but would be better as a place of Hawaiian restoration, right? Environmental restoration, cultural restoration. The group Malama Makua says this should be at the University of Makua. It should be a place to learn how to restore the earth. And so we've had a ceremony there for 14 years now. We've had makahiki ceremonies in the valley. And so that's a sign of hope. And I think if there's opportunities to go to Makua twice a month through service learning, if anyone's interested in that, you can talk to us. It's you know, you don't get to see everything because they really can try to constrain us. But it's great to be able to get in the valley and see and touch these places, you know, and have the valley speak to you. So it's a beautiful place. And with that, I think that's my last slide. So with that, I'll just close by telling a brief story. Atwood Makanani is a Hawaiian activist and a voyager. He sailed on the Hokulea. And one time when I was driving in a car with him, he told me, "You got a haku," right? And I didn't know what he was talking about. And he was in Hawaiian, haku means like to braid something or to compose, right? And I was like, okay, I have to think about it. She speaks in cryptic ways like this. So I think what he was saying was, by weaving together the many strands of our struggles, we can make a robe, a strand that's much stronger than its individual parts. And hopefully this thing that we braid together can be strong enough to catch and hold those big fish that threaten to eat us all in the Pacific. So, thank you very much.
Malama i ka vai. Ai he malama. Malama i ka moana. Ai he malama. Malama i ka honua. Malama aina. Malama honua. Eo. Hey ui. Hey ni now. Ai he malama. Malama i luna. Ai he malama. Malama i ka moana. Ai he malama. Malama i ka vai. Ai he malama. Malama i ka moana. Ai he malama. Malama i ka honua. Malama aina. Malama honua. Eo.
Yeah. Check it out, y'all. To the beat, y'all. To the beat, y'all. Never sleep, y'all. Never sleep, y'all. Never stop, y'all. Never stop, y'all. Never quit, y'all. Never quit. Keep going and going. Keep going and going. Keep going and going. Keep going and going. They got a war for oil, a war for gold, a war for money, and a war for souls. A war on terror, a war on drugs, a war on kindness, a war on hugs, a war on birds and a war on bees. They got a war on hippies trying to save the trees. A war with jets and a war with missiles. A war with high-seated government officials. Wall Street war on high finance. A war on people who just love to dance. A war on music, a war on speech. A war on teachers and the things they teach. A war for the last 500 years. War's just messing up the atmosphere. A war on Muslims,